The council chamber stretched across 3 football fields, filled with representatives from 47 different alien species. Some floated in gravity bubbles. Others sat on platforms designed for their unique bodies. The air smelled like ozone, and something sweet that Captain Tae-Young Kim could not identify. He stood near the back with Ambassador Ji-won Lee, watching the chaos unfold. On the massive holographic display in the center, a black tear in space rotated slowly. It looked like someone had ripped a hole in reality itself. Red energy crackled along its edges. The void rift had been growing for 2 years now, and no one knew how to stop it. High Scholar Vren spoke first. His voice echoed through everyone's translator implants, sounding like wind chimes. We have attempted 17 different solutions. All have failed. The rift continues to expand. At current rates, it will consume the Corinth system in 4 months, the Bellin colonies in 6, and reach the trade routes in 8. A massive creature with 6 arms and crystal skin slammed one appendage on its platform. Evacuation is our only option. We must accept this loss. We must accept this 23 worlds, someone else said. Billions of lives displaced. Better displaced than dead, another voice added. The argument went in circles. Tae-Young had heard it all before during the past 3 weeks. Every species had tried to solve this problem. The Valkyrie, who had been spacefaring for 5,000 years, sent their best military minds. Nothing worked. The ascended minds, ancient beings made of pure energy, could not crack it. The mathematical geniuses of the Prith Collective failed. Even the machine intelligence of the synthetic accord came up empty. Ji-won touched his arm. You are certain about this? Tae-Yang nodded. Not even a little bit. But someone has to try something different. Different is what I am worried about, Ji-won said, but there was a smile in her voice. The debate continued. More voices joined in, all saying the same thing in different ways. We cannot solve this. We must evacuate. This is impossible. Tae-Young stepped forward. His boots clicked on the smooth floor, and the sound carried in a moment of quiet. Heads turned. Eyes, and other sensory organs, focused on him. He felt very small suddenly, and very young. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 80 years ago. Many species in this room had civilizations older than human recorded history. I have something to say, Tae-Young announced. Commander Dane, the Valkyrie military representative, made a sound like grinding stone. The humans wish to speak. This should be entertaining. Ji-won stood beside Tae-Yang. Captain Kim has a proposal. The humans? Another voice. This one sounding like bubbling water. What could they possibly offer? They barely understand quantum mechanics. We understand enough, Tae-Yang said. His heart hammered in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. We have been studying your data. All of it. Every attempt, every failure, every model. And we think we can fix this. The chamber went silent. Then laughter started. Not cruel laughter, but the kind that comes from surprise and disbelief. Even High Scholar Vren seemed amused, though it was hard to tell with a being made of light. You think you can solve what we could not? Commander Dane stood, his massive form towering even through the hologram. Child species. You do not even have proper shield technology. Your fastest ships are slower than our cargo vessels. And you think you can repair a hole in space-time itself? Yes, Tae-Yang said simply. Impossible, someone muttered. Probably, Tae-Yang agreed. But we would like to try. Ji-won stepped forward. Ambassador Lee, speaking for Earth. We formally request 90 days to attempt a solution. If we fail, you can proceed with evacuation plans. You lose nothing by letting us try. Except time, Commander Dane said. The evacuation will take 6 months to organize anyway, Ji-won countered. Your own reports say so. Give us 3 months. If we show no progress, we will step aside. High Scholar Vren drifted closer, his form pulsed with curiosity. Why do you believe you can succeed, Captain Kim? Please. I genuinely wish to know. Tae-young thought about how to explain it. How do you put into words something you feel in your gut? Because we are not as smart as you, he finally said. We do not have thousands of years of scientific laws telling us what cannot be done. We look at impossible problems and think, well, maybe nobody tried the right-wrong answer yet. That makes no sense, someone said. Exactly, Tae-young replied. That is kind of our specialty. More debate followed. Some species supported the idea, mostly out of curiosity. Others opposed it, calling it a waste of resources. Commander Dane argued the loudest against it, saying that humanity was too inexperienced, too reckless, too new to understand what they were dealing with. But desperation is a powerful motivator. Every other option had been exhausted. What harm could it do to let the humans try? Finally, after 2 hours of discussion, High Scholar Vren called for a vote. The holographic displays lit up with responses. Green for yes, red for no, yellow for abstain. The results came in. 24 green, 19 red, 4 yellow. The motion passes, High Scholar Vren announced. Humanity is granted 90 days to attempt a solution to the Void Rift. Captain Kim, you will have access to any resources you request, within reason. A Valkyrie observer will accompany your mission to report progress. We wish you luck, though I suspect you will need more than luck. As the chamber began to empty, Commander Dane approached Tae-young. Up close, the Valkyrie was even more intimidating. His skin looked like dark metal, and his eyes glowed with orange light. I will be your observer, Dane said, and I will document your failure. When you cannot solve this, do not waste time with pride. Call for help. Lives depend on this. I know, Tae-young said. That is why we will not fail. Dane made that grinding sound again. It might have been a laugh. We shall see, human. We shall see. As they left the council chamber, Ji-won put a hand on Tae-young's shoulder. You do have a plan, right? Please tell me you have some idea of what to do. Tae-young smiled, though his stomach was churning with nerves. I have the start of an idea. And I know exactly who to call. Should I be worried? Probably, Tae-young admitted. But when has that ever stopped us? The cargo vessel times resilience times was not impressive. It had carried mining equipment for 15 years before being retrofitted for deep space research. The hull bore scratches and dents from 1,000 small accidents. One of the engines made a weird clicking sound that the mechanics swore was normal. Commander Dane stood in the cargo bay, looking around with what Tae-young had learned to recognize as disappointment. This is your vessel? Dane asked. She flies, Tae-young said. That is what matters. The Valkyrie would have provided a military science ship, proper equipment, trained personnel. We did not want proper, Tae-young replied. We wanted functional. The crew began arriving over the next day. Dane watched each one board, and his confusion seemed to grow with each new face. First came Captain Hyun-woo Choi, a salvage ship operator who looked too young to have his own command. His hair stuck up in several directions, and he carried a toolbox covered in faded stickers. Tae-yang! He called out. This is the ship? I have worked with worse. Dr. Minji Song arrived next, carrying 3 bags of books and almost nothing else. She was a xenobiologist, not a physicist. When Dane asked why a specialist in alien life forms was needed for a space-time problem, she just grinned and said, You would be surprised how similar things can be. Then came Yuna Kang, barely 22 years old, who had dropped out of the Imperial Academy after arguing with her professors about engine design. She walked right up to Dane, looked up at his towering form, and said, You are Valkyrie, right? I have always wanted to see your ship engines. Is it true they use crystalline matrices for power distribution? Dane blinked, caught off guard. Yes. How did you? I read a lot. Yuna said, already moving past him to examine the ship's engine room. Sergeant Minho Bay was the only one who looked like military. But even he was odd. A combat engineer who spent his free time painting. He set up a small easel in his quarters within an hour of boarding. When Dine asked about it, Minho just shrugged and said, "Helps me think. Truder. About. Ascend. About." The last to arrive was Dr. Suman Jang, an AI ethics specialist. She had gray hair and kind eyes, and absolutely no background in physics or engineering. Dane finally had to ask, why is she here? What does artificial intelligence ethics have to do with a void rift? Not sure yet, Taeyang admitted. But Dr. Hana thought we might need her perspective. Dr. Hana Park, Dane said. Your lead scientist. When does she arrive? She is already here, Taeyang said, pointing to a woman lying on her back under a console, working on something. She got here early and started calibrating equipment. Hana rolled out from under the console, her face smudged with grease. The sensor arrays were not aligned properly. Fixed now, though. She noticed Dane and waved. Hello. You must be our observer. Welcome aboard. That evening, the crew gathered in what passed for a common area. It was really just a cargo hold with chairs. They sat around drinking terrible coffee and discussing the problem. The rift is expanding at a steady rate, Hana explained, pulling up holographic data. Every species has tried to contain it or close it by force. Gravitational generators, energy dampeners, spatial stabilizers. Nothing works because they are treating it like a problem with a single solution. What if there is not a single solution? Minji suggested. She was flipping through one of her books. Something about ecosystem collapse patterns. What if it is more like a living system? When an ecosystem gets damaged, you cannot just force it back to normal. You have to understand what is happening and work with it. The rift is not alive, Dane said. Maybe not, Minji agreed. But it might behave like something alive. Complex systems often do. Yuna was sketching on a tablet, her fingers moving quickly. What if we stop thinking about it as something to fix and start thinking about it as something to redirect? Like, when a river floods, sometimes you cannot stop it. You just dig channels to control where the water goes. Redirecting a space-time anomaly, Dane said slowly. That is not possible. See, there is that word again, Hyun-woo said with a grin. Impossible. Can we ban that word on this ship? Minho had been quiet, staring at the holographic display of the rift. It looks like a wound, he said suddenly. Look at the pattern. The way the energy moves around the edges. My grandmother was a doctor. She showed me pictures of wounds under microscopes once. This looks similar. Everyone turned to look at the display with new eyes. A wound, Hana repeated. That tries to heal itself, but gets stuck, Sumin added. Like when healing goes wrong. An overreaction. The body trying so hard to fix something that it makes it worse. You are saying the rift is trying to close itself? Dane asked. Maybe, Hana said. Her eyes were bright now, excited. What if every attempt to force it closed has actually been interfering with its natural healing process? Like picking at a scab, the conversation continued into the night. They threw out wild ideas. Most were clearly wrong, but some made strange sense. Dane watched this chaos with growing concern. There was no structure, no methodology. They jumped from topic to topic, made jokes, argued, then suddenly agreed on something that seemed to come from nowhere. At one point, Hyun-woo was explaining how salvage operations taught him to always look for the weak point in a structure, while Minji was comparing it to how parasites find weak points in host organisms, and Yuna was describing how energy flows through damaged circuits. Somehow, this became a discussion about finding the rift's weak point. This is not proper scientific method, Dane finally said. No, Taeyang agreed. It is human method. We throw everything at a problem and see what sticks. Chaos, Dane said. Organized chaos, Minho corrected. There is a difference. Over the next 2 weeks, they approached the rift. Sensors ran constantly, collecting data. But they also did strange things. Minji wanted biological readings, so they tested how different organisms reacted to the rift's energy. Minho painted what he saw, saying visual representation helped him spot patterns. Yuna took apart and rebuilt several sensor arrays, improving them in ways that broke standard protocols but worked better. Sumin spent time analyzing how AI systems responded to the rift's chaotic data. Interesting, she kept saying. The patterns are not random. They are too complex to be random. Like noise, but with structure underneath. Dane sent his first report back to the council. He tried to be diplomatic, but his concern was clear. The humans were using unproven methods. They seemed to be guessing more than calculating. Their ship was held together with improvised repairs. Their crew was talented but inexperienced compared to galactic standards. Yet, he had to admit, they were finding things. Small things. Patterns in the data that other teams had missed. Connections between different aspects of the rift that no one had considered before. At the end of week 3, Hana called everyone together. I think we have been looking at this wrong from the beginning, she said. Every species tried to solve the rift, like a physics problem. But what if it is more like a biology problem? Or an ecosystem problem? Or even a psychology problem? How can a tier in space have psychology? Dane asked. It cannot, Hana agreed. But complex systems can have behavior patterns, and behavior patterns can be influenced. She pulled up new data, color-coded in ways that made the rift look less like a random anomaly and more like something with rhythm and flow. We cannot force it closed, Hana continued. Convince space-time, Dane said flatly. Why not? Hyunwoo said with a shrug. We convinced the Galactic Council to let us try. That seemed impossible, too. Taeyang looked at his crew. These strange, brilliant, chaotic humans who refused to accept that something could not be done simply because no one had done it before. All right, he said. Let us do the impossible. Again, 45 days into the mission, the Times Resilience Times held position at the rift's edge. Through the viewports, the tear in space looked even more terrifying up close. It pulsed with dark energy, and staring at it too long made Taeyang's head hurt. The rift had grown another 3% since they arrived. The breakthrough came during what Hyunwoo called a stupid idea session. Everyone gathered with food and drinks, throwing out their wildest thoughts without judgment. It was Minji who made the connection. Look at these energy patterns, she said, pulling up her latest scans. See how they spike and fall? It reminds me of immune system responses in Corvian lizards. When they get injured, their bodies try to heal. But sometimes, the healing response gets stuck in a loop. The wound tries to close, fails, triggers more healing response, which makes it worse. Which triggers more healing. Yuna leaned forward. A feedback loop. Exactly, Minji said. The rift is not just expanding because it is broken. It is expanding because it is trying to fix itself and failing. So we need to break the loop, Minho said. Hana was already working on calculations. If we can interrupt the feedback pattern, even for a moment, the rift might be able to complete its healing process naturally. How do we interrupt it? Dane asked. He had been sending more positive reports lately, though he still seemed skeptical. We need to interact with it, Hana said. Touch it, in a way. But not with force. With resonance. Over the next week, Yuna and Minho worked almost non-stop. They took technology from 6 different alien species and combined it in ways that made Dane visibly uncomfortable. A Prith energy modulator connected to a human power core. Velkari stabilizers jury-rigged with Earth sensors. At one point, Yuna used cargo netting to hold 2 incompatible systems together, while Minho welded a permanent solution. This violates 17 safety protocols, Dane observed. Probably more. Yuna agreed cheerfully, not looking up from her work. What they built looked like a mess of cables and components that should not work together. But when they powered it up, the resonance net hummed to life exactly as designed. It could project specific energy frequencies that would interact with the rift without pushing against it. It is like tuning a guitar, Minho explained. You do not force the string to the right note. You adjust until it resonates correctly. The first test was small. They positioned the times, resilience times, at a safe distance and activated the resonance net at 10% power. The crew watched the readings in silence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the rift's expansion rate dropped, just slightly, less than 1%. But it dropped. It worked, Hyunwoo whispered. They ran 6 more tests over 3 days, each time adjusting the frequency patterns based on Minji's biological models and Sumin's chaos algorithms. The rift responded to each test, its expansion slowing by another small percentage. By day 53, they had reduced the rift's growth rate by 12%. It was still expanding, but slower. Much slower. Dane sent an urgent report to the council. For the first time, someone had actually affected the rift's behavior. The response came back within hours. High Scholar Vren himself wanted to know how they did it. We treated it like a living system instead of a dead problem, Taeyang explained over the communication link. And we used controlled chaos. Explain controlled chaos, Vren requested. Suman stepped forward. In AI systems, sometimes rigid programming creates problems that flexibility solves. The rift is locked in a rigid pattern, a loop it cannot break. By introducing carefully controlled chaos into that pattern, we give it permission to behave differently. You are using disorder to create order, Vren said slowly. Fascinating. Can you close the rift entirely? That is the problem, Hana admitted. We can slow it down. Maybe even stop its expansion. But to actually close it requires more power than we have. A lot more. The crew gathered in the common area that night. They had proven their concept worked, but scaling it up seemed impossible. The power requirements were enormous. They would need at least 20 ships with military-grade reactors, all working in perfect coordination. We could ask the council for support, Taeyang said. They would say no, Dane replied. He had been quiet all day. I know my people. The Velkari will not commit fleet resources to an unproven human theory. Other species will feel the same. You have shown promise, but not certainty. So what do we do? Minji asked. Hyunwoo had been staring at the star charts in silence. Now he stood up and pointed at the display. What about that? Everyone looked. He was pointing at a dead star, a neutron remnant about 40 light-years from their position. It was marked on charts as a navigation hazard. What about it? Hana asked. It is dead, right? Not being used for anything? Right, Hana said slowly. How much mass does it have? Hana checked. About 1.4 times our sun's mass. Compressed into a sphere 20 kilometers across. Why? Why? Hyunwoo grinned. Because I am thinking we do not need 20 ships worth of power. We need one really big gravity source. The room went quiet as everyone processed his idea. You want to move a neutron star, Dane said flatly. Not far, Hyunwoo said. Just close enough to use its gravitational field as part of the resonance net. Think about it. That much mass. That much gravity. Right next to the rift. We could use it like an anchor point. Stabilize the area while our net does its work. Moving stellar objects is forbidden by treaty, Dane said. The treaty says moving them for weapons purposes is forbidden, Suman corrected. This is for healing. For saving lives. That is different. Minho was already sketching. We would need to coordinate hundreds of gravity tethers, maybe thousands, all pulling in exact synchronization. Impossible. Dane started to say. then caught himself. I mean, extremely difficult. That is better, Yuna said with a smile. Hana was working through calculations, her fingers flying across her tablet. After 10 minutes, she looked up. It could work. The math is solid. We use the neutron star's gravity to create a stable framework, then apply our resonance net within that framework. The rift would not be able to maintain its feedback loop. How do we move a neutron star? Taeyang asked. Very carefully, Hyunwoo said. And with a lot of ships. We would need to build thousands of gravity tethers, position them around the star, and then pull. All at once, all in perfect coordination. We do not have thousands of ships, Minji pointed out. No, Taeyang agreed. But humanity has 200 vessels in this sector. And if we explain what we are trying to do, I bet we can get others to help. Dane shook his head. The council will never approve this. Then we do not ask for approval, Taeyang said. We ask for forgiveness later. You are talking about violating council authority, Dane said. About acting without permission on a galactic scale. I am talking about saving 23 worlds, Taeyang replied. If we wait for approval, we will run out of time. We have the solution. We just need to implement it. Dane stood silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. If you do this without authorization, I am required to report it immediately. I know, Taeyang said. But, Dane continued, communication systems sometimes experience delays in deep space, technical failures. Such things happen, Hyunwoo laughed. Did a Valkyrie military commander just suggest we might have communication problems? I am simply stating facts about deep space communications, Dane said, but there was something in his expression that might have been a smile. How long would these theoretical communication problems need to last? Great man. I-5. 72 hours should be enough, Hana said. That is quite a malfunction, Dane observed. But I suppose it is possible. Taeyang looked at his crew. They were all exhausted, working on too little sleep and too much coffee. But their eyes were bright with determination. All right, he said. Let us move a star. The emergency council session was called by High Scholar Vren himself. The chamber filled quickly with angry representatives. Someone had leaked the human plan. And the reaction was exactly what Taeyang had expected. Complete chaos. They want to do what? The Prith representative's voice came through, sounding like crackling electricity. Move a neutron star? Have they lost their minds? Ambassador Jiwon stood at the center of the chamber, calm despite the storm around her. The plan is sound. Our scientists have verified the mathematics. Your scientists? Commander Dane's superior officer said, his voice heavy with disgust. Humans who have been in space for less than a century. This is beyond reckless. This is insanity. This is also our only option, Jiwon replied. Unless you have a better solution? Silence. No one did. That was the problem. The treaties are clear, someone else said. Moving stellar objects is forbidden. For weapons, Jiwon countered. This is not a weapon. This is a tool to save billions of lives. The energy requirements alone, another voice chimed in. You would need hundreds of ships. You do not have them. We are gathering them now, Jiwon said simply. That caused a new explosion of angry voices. How dare they act without permission? Who did humanity think they were? This was unacceptable. High Scholar Vren's light pulsed, calling for silence. Ambassador Lee, your people have been working without council oversight. This is a serious breach of protocol. With respect, High Scholar, we are within our 90-day window. We told you we would attempt a solution. This is that solution. A solution that could destroy multiple star systems if it fails, someone said. And we'll definitely lose multiple star systems if we do nothing, Jiwon shot back. Your evacuation plans are not ready. Even if you started today, you cannot move everyone in time. The rift is growing too fast. Vren drifted closer to Jiwon. I have reviewed your team's findings. The science is solid. The approach is brilliant, actually. But the execution requires perfect coordination on a scale never attempted before. One mistake, and you could make things infinitely worse. Then we will not make mistakes, Jiwon said. Meanwhile, 75 days into the mission, the Times, Resilience Times, and a growing fleet of human vessels surrounded the neutron star. Hyunwoo had sent out messages to every human ship in the sector. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, colony transports, even a few tourist cruisers. Everyone who could answer the call came. They came because Taeyang had explained the situation honestly. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before. It might fail. They might die. But if they did nothing, billions would suffer. Every single ship he contacted said yes. Now there were 237 human vessels holding position around the dead star. Yuna and her team had worked for days straight, building gravity tethers. They were ugly things, cobbled together from mining equipment, modified tractor beams, and jury-rigged alien technology. Each ship got one tether and exact positioning coordinates. Minho coordinated the installation. He moved from ship to ship in a small transport, helping crews attach the tethers and explaining how they needed to work. His combat engineering experience proved invaluable. He knew how to make impossible logistics work. It is like conducting an orchestra, he explained to one nervous cargo captain. Everyone plays their part at the exact right time. You just follow the signals. Minji and Sumin were aboard the Times, Resilience Asterisk, monitoring biological and chaos factors. They had discovered something interesting. The neutron star's gravitational field had patterns, rhythms in how it interacted with local space. By timing their pull to match those rhythms, they could move the star with less force and more precision. It is like pushing someone on a swing, Minji explained. You do not just push hard. You push at the right moment in the arc. Hana coordinated everything from the main science station. She had not slept in 30 hours and showed no signs of stopping. Coffee cups littered her workspace. Her hair was a mess, but her hands were steady as she checked and rechecked every calculation. Positioning is critical, she told Taeyang. If the star is even a few thousand kilometers off when we activate the resonance net, the gravitational interference could tear the rift wider instead of stabilizing it. Can we do it? Taeyang asked quietly. Hana looked at him with tired eyes. Ask me in 72 hours. Back at the council, the debate raged on. But something had changed. Dane was speaking now, and his voice carried weight. I have observed these humans for 75 days, he said. I went expecting to document failure. Instead, I have witnessed something remarkable. They do not approach problems the way we do. Where we see obstacles, they see puzzles. Where we calculate impossibility, they calculate solutions. Pretty words, someone said. But can they succeed? I do not know, Dane admitted. But I know they will try harder than anyone else would. And I know that sometimes they will cardly. Trying differently is more important than trying correctly. The Velkari military representative stood. Commander Dane, are you saying you support this plan? Dane straightened. I am saying I trust them, and I am formally requesting that the Velkari fleet assist their operation. Shock rippled through the chamber. A Velkari commander was openly defying his superior officer. You would commit our ships to this madness? His superior asked. I would commit our ships to saving lives, Dane replied. Is that not what we are supposed to do? Other voices joined in. A few supported the humans. Most remained opposed. But doubt was creeping in. What if the humans were right? What if this crazy plan could work? High Scholar Vren finally spoke. We will put it to a vote. All those in favor of authorizing the human operation. Lights flickered across the chamber. Green, red, yellow. The counting seemed to take forever. The vote is tied, Vren announced. 23 in favor, 23 opposed, 1 abstention. Then we vote again, someone demanded. No, Vren said. A tie means no official authorization, but it also means no official prohibition. The humans are within their granted time period. They may proceed at their own risk. Jiwan smiled slightly. It was not exactly permission, but it was not a no either. At the neutron star, final preparations were complete. Every ship was in position. Every tether was attached and tested. The crews waited for the signal. Taeyang opened a channel to all vessels, his voice carried to every ship in the fleet. This is Captain Kim. I know you are all scared. I am scared too. What we are about to do has never been attempted before. We are going to move a star. We are going to do it with equipment that was never designed for this purpose. We are going to do it perfectly on the first try, because we will not get a second chance. He paused, looking around at his crew. They were exhausted, but determined. Ready. Some people say humans are reckless, that we do not understand our limitations. Maybe they are right. But I prefer to think we just do not accept limitations. We look at impossible problems and say, we have got this. And you know what? Usually, we do. So let us show the galaxy what humans can do. Let us move a star. Let us close the rift. Let us save those 23 worlds. Because that is what humans do. We fix things. We help people. We do the impossible. All ships, prepare to engage gravity tethers on my mark. 237 ships activated their tethers simultaneously. The neutron star shuddered. Space itself seemed to groan under the strain, and slowly, impossibly, the star began to move. Across the galaxy, the council watched in stunned silence as telemetry came in. The humans were actually doing it. They were moving a neutron star. High Scholar Vren's light pulsed with what might have been wonder. Remarkable, he whispered. Absolutely remarkable. Back on the Times Resilience asterisk, Hyunwoo was grinning like a maniac as he coordinated the pull. That is it. Perfect synchronization. Keep that rhythm. Grinning. Krins digressed. Grinning. The star moved slowly. So slowly, it barely registered on sensors at first. But it moved. Centimeter by centimeter, kilometer by kilometer. The massive dead sun changed position. Time to destination? Taeyang asked. 68 hours at current rate, Hana replied. But we cannot maintain this for 68 hours. The ships will run out of power. GDE. GDE. Then we will figure something out, Taeyang said. We have got this. The neutron star had been moving for 40 hours when the power problem started. Ships began dropping out of formation as their reactors overheated or fuel cells depleted. Hyunwoo frantically rerouted tethers, redistributing the load. But they were losing vessels faster than he could compensate. We are not going to make it, someone said quietly. Yes, we will, Taeyang replied. He opened a general channel. All ships experiencing power difficulties. Shut down non-essential systems. Life support to minimum. Route everything to the tethers. Meijing. Across the fleet, crews made hard choices. Lights dimmed, temperature controls shut off. Entertainment systems, food processors, even some sensor arrays went dark. Every bit of power went to moving the star. It helped, but not enough. The star was only halfway to its destination. They needed more power or more time, and they had neither. Then Commander Dane's voice came over the communication channel. This is Velkari Fleet Command. We are entering your sector, transmitting coordination data now. On the sensors, 12 Velkari military cruisers appeared. They moved with perfect precision, taking positions around the star and engaging their own gravity systems. The Velkari ships were designed for power. Each one could match 10 human vessels. Velkari Command, this is Captain Kim. You will face consequences for this. Probably, Dane replied. But you said something that stuck with me. Sometimes trying differently is more important than following orders. My people may not understand that, but I do now. More ships arrived. Prith science vessels, their crystalline hulls glowing with energy. A handful of mining ships from the Synthetic Accord, even a few independent traders and merchants who had no stake in this fight except wanting to help. Within 3 hours, the fleet had grown from 200 to 400 vessels. Power distribution stabilized. The neutron star's movement accelerated. Aboard the Time's Resilience Asterisk, the crew worked around the clock. Yuna and Minho made constant adjustments to the resonance net, preparing it for activation. Minji monitored the rift, tracking its behavior. Sumin refined her chaos algorithms, making sure they would introduce exactly the right amount of disorder at exactly the right moment. Hana barely left her station. Taeyang brought her food, which she ate without tasting. Her eyes were fixed on the calculations, the trajectories, the 1,000 variables that all had to align perfectly. "Talk to me, Hana," Taeyang said quietly during one of his visits. "The math works," she said. "It all works. On paper, we should succeed. But paper does not account for the unexpected. And with something this complex, the unexpected is guaranteed." "Then we adapt," Taeyang said. Like always, 89 days into the mission, the neutron star reached its position. Hyunwoo coordinated the final adjustments, moving the massive dead sun into place with millimeter precision. It took 6 hours of careful maneuvering, but finally, the star sat exactly where it needed to be. The gravity well created by the neutron star warped space around the rift. The rift shuddered. Its expansion pattern disrupted for the first time since it formed. "Resonance net ready," Yuna reported. "Chaos algorithms loaded," Sumin added. "Biological models active," Minji confirmed. Taeyang looked at his crew. They were exhausted. Hana took a deep breath. "All ships, move to safe distance. We do not know what will happen when we activate." The fleet pulled back, creating a wide perimeter around the rift and the neutron star. Only the Time's Resilience Times remained close, as it carried the resonance net. "Activating in 10 seconds, Hana announced. 9, 8, 7, 8. Taeyang gripped the arms of his chair. This was it. Everything they had worked for came down to the next few moments. 3, 2, 1. Activation. The resonance net came alive, projecting carefully tuned energy frequencies into the space around the rift. The neutron star's gravity provided a stable framework, a cosmic scaffolding that kept everything contained. And within that framework, Sumin's chaos algorithms introduced controlled disorder into the rift's feedback loop. For a long moment, nothing seemed to happen. The rift pulsed, its energy patterns unchanged. Then everything changed at once. The rift convulsed. Energy exploded outward, and for a terrifying second, it looked like they had made it worse. Alarms blared. The ship rocked from gravitational waves. "Hold position," Taeyang ordered. The rift's energy patterns began to shift. The rigid feedback loop that had kept it growing was breaking down, replaced by something more fluid, more natural. The wound in space-time was finally healing on its own terms. Minji watched her biological models, seeing the rift behave exactly like an overactive immune response being calmed. "It is working," she whispered. The rift began to shrink. Slowly at first, then faster. The tear in reality closed, like a wound, finally allowed to heal. Properly. Energy redistributed, space-time smoothed out, and within 23 hours, the rift was gone. Completely gone. The Time's Resilience Times bridge was silent. Then Hyunwoo started laughing. Then Yuna. Then everyone. They laughed and cried and hugged each other because they had just done the impossible. "All fleet vessels, this is Captain Kim. The rift is closed. I repeat, the rift is closed. Thank you all for your help. You just saved 23 worlds." Cheers erupted across every ship in the fleet. Human crews celebrated. Velkari officers saluted. Even the usually stoic synthetic accord vessels sent congratulatory messages. At the Galactic Council, the chamber sat in stunned silence. They had all watched the telemetry, seen the impossible happen in real time. High Scholar Vren's light pulsed with colors no one had seen from him before. They did it, someone finally said. The humans actually did it. How? Another voice asked. How did they succeed where we failed? Ambassador Jiwan stood at the center of the chamber, exhausted but victorious. Because we do not accept impossibility. Because we try things your species decided long ago could not work. Because we are too new, too inexperienced to know we should have failed. And because, Commander Dane added, having returned to the council, they understand something we forgot. Sometimes chaos is more powerful than order. Sometimes adaptation beats perfection. Sometimes you just have to try. The council erupted in discussion. Demands for detailed reports. Questions about the technology used. Offers of positions. Resources. Partnerships. Everyone wanted a piece of what humanity had accomplished. But Taeyang was not paying attention to any of that. He was watching his crew. They were already talking about what to have for dinner. Already joking about the next impossible problem. Already moving forward because that is what humans do. 3 months later, the Galactic Council formally offered humanity a permanent advisory position. Not as full members, not yet, but as specialists for impossible problems. Earth became known across the galaxy as the place you call when everything else has failed. Because humans had a reputation now. They had proven something fundamental about their species. When faced with the impossible, they did not calculate the odds of failure. They just said, "We have got this," and figured it out as they went. Taeyang stood in his apartment on Earth, looking up at the stars. His communicator chirped with a new message from the council. Another crisis. Something about a sentient nebula that was having what scientists called an existential crisis. He smiled and sent a quick reply. Assembling team. We have got this. Within an hour, his communicator lit up with responses. Hyunwoo was in. Minji was curious to meet a sentient nebula. Yuna wanted to see if nebulas had anything like engine systems. Minho thought it might make an interesting painting subject. Suman was already wondering about the ethics of nebula consciousness. Even Dane sent a message. I have been reassigned to permanent liaison duty with human operations. Someone has to keep you out of trouble. Taeyang laughed. Trouble was a good description for what they did. Trouble that saved lives. Trouble that solved impossible problems. Trouble that proved humanity belonged among the stars. He looked back up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, a nebula needed help. Somewhere, people were saying a problem could not be solved. But humanity had a different perspective. They saw impossible problems as invitations. They saw chaos as opportunity. They saw failure as a learning experience. And most importantly, they never gave up. They just kept trying, kept adapting, kept saying, "We have got this," until eventually, impossibly, wonderfully, they did. Because that was what humans did. They fixed things. They helped people. They did the impossible. One crazy solution at a time. The Times Resilience Times launched 3 days later, heading toward the existential nebula. The crew was ready. The ship was loaded with supplies. And somewhere in the cargo hold, Yuna had packed what she called interpretive dance equipment. Because she had an idea about communicating with sentient gas clouds. Taeyang just shook his head and smiled. This was going to be another interesting mission. Another impossible problem. Another chance to show the galaxy what humanity could do. All right, everyone, he said as they jumped to hyperspace. Let us go talk to a nebula. How hard could it be? Hyunwoo grinned. Famous last words. Probably, Taeyang agreed. But we have got this. And somehow, impossibly, they probably did.